from the vault, high atop the pastoral center of the Diocese of Camden, you're listening to Talking Catholic.
Hello and welcome to Talking Catholic. This is Mary McCusker, Talking Catholic co-host, and this, for the first time ever, I am recording this from the comfort of my apartment. I'm not trapped in the vault. I'm not in the buildings at work. I'm nice and cozy. My dog is here. I have my coffee nearby, and I know it's a difficult time for a lot of people and for our listeners, but hopefully now's at least a good chance to catch up on things like podcasts and maybe tuning in today. And I'm joined with the other host, Mike Walsh.
Hey.
How are you, Mike?
I'm well, Mary. How are you? We are actually, we're doing this using the Zoom web conferencing, which I recommend to anybody. And it's nice because you can actually see the person you're having a conversation with. So it's a more natural conversation. And if you happen to be having a conversation with Mary McCusker and she's in her place, you see a ton of artwork on the back of her walls. And I'm 99% sure she's doing this while sitting on her bed because she's bouncing around as if she's on her bed. Mary, are you on your bed recording this?
I just saw something and it was like a starter pack for Zoom calls. And it was, one of them was, there's always a person who's trying to pretend like they're not actually on their bed. There's the person who only looks at themselves the entire time during the Zoom call. And I'm like, check. Like I fit all of these categories. It's a useful tool, but yeah. Yes, I am on my bed and I'm comfortable.
I'm in my office at home. So that's where I'm doing it from. But for you and I, this is actually the first day that we're finally getting an opportunity to self-quarantine in our own homes. You and I have been sort of on the road and doing a lot of work. But just yesterday, the diocesan offices for the Camden Diocese officially closed down to be in line with Bishop's or Governor Murphy's edict about essential personnel staying off the roads and away from places. Fortunately, you and I are considered essential in terms of we're both Catholic newspaper employees as well. So we will be out and about taking photos and doing stories whenever necessary because there's still a lot of stuff in the diocese going on, just stripped down with a lot less people. So we will be out and about. So you may see us in places. Yeah. And quite frankly, you and I are both digital media specialists in addition to working for the newspaper. So we're the people who are doing our best to get this information out on the internet, which is something we're all relying. I can't tell you, I thought we were all fancy because we're doing these Zoom conference calls, but the truth of the matter is almost every entity I've seen so far, publication, outlet, news outlet, maybe, I don't know, more than half of them have been using Zoom web conferencing. Have you noticed that in the things you follow, Mary?
I was on 3 different Zoom calls yesterday, and one of them had a ton of so many people, and they are very useful. I know it's becoming more and more popular.
I've seen people doing
one of the calls. What'd you say?
Well, I've seen people doing Zoom birthday parties and Zoom cocktail hours, in addition to people doing media stuff like we are.
Well, that's creative. I was just reading something about canceled weddings and huge gatherings and just move it all to Zoom.
That's right. We can do everything else with Zoom.
The only challenge is getting everyone to mute themselves when one person is talking so there's not static and dogs barking in the background and but it is funny to get a glance into people's homes and just seeing them in a different way. Yeah. That has been interesting.
I just had to let Molly out of my office so that she could, my dog Molly, so she could go out for a bit. Is Ollie anywhere around your room right now?
Ollie is whining outside the bedroom door.
Because Ollie wants to come in and hang out.
But I know that if he were here, he'd be jumping all over the laptop and disrupting the call and the recording. So...
we miss Ollie.
But we are hanging in there.
Okay. Well, that's good. And we have a very special episode today. This is one we've had planned for a while, and it's sort of in the light of, the coronavirus pandemic. It's sort of taken on a completely new perspective. So we're going to change gears a little bit with it. And but Mary, why don't you introduce who our guest is?
Our guest is Katie Comerford. Comerford. I think I already butchered that. Can you correct me, Katie?
That was perfect.
I don't know if I said Cumberford, and then I looked at your Zoom name, the actual text, Comerford. Is that right?
Yes, that is.
I'm sorry, Katie. Welcome to Katie. And I also, you mentioned your title before, and I know I'll get that wrong as usual because so many of the people in our diocese have these long titles and they're always such a mouthful and I can never remember. So can you just give us your title?
Absolutely. So I'm the Associate Director of Development for the House of Charity Bishop's Annual Appeal.
Now, in Katie's defense, we can't blame her for half of that because for whatever reason, 20 years ago when the House of Charity Bishop's Annual Appeal was developed, maybe 30 years ago even, they couldn't really determine a name. So it's been the Bishop's Annual Appeal, the House of Charity, and they couldn't decide on just doing one of them. So they put them together. So now we have these, 7 words that we use on a regular basis. However, in shorthand parlance, Katie, what do you usually say? Do you just say the whole thing or just say House of Charity?
I say House of Charity, Associate Director for the House of Charity. That's the nice, quick way to say it. And it's that's quick.
Yes.
So what exactly does that... Now, Katie is a returning guest, so some of our listeners may have heard from her before, but if you don't recall what Katie does, Katie, can you tell us about the House of Charity?
Absolutely. So I am the manager of the House of Charity Bishop's Annual Appeal, and we essentially support a bunch of different ministries throughout the diocese on a year-to-year basis to help them continue to do the great works that they do. So, we rely heavily on generous donations from the parishioners and even visitors to the parishes to help us continue to reach our goal each and every year. And one of the areas which, Mary is obviously very familiar with is Catholic Charities. So we do a large portion of what we raise goes to Catholic Charities each year. So it's a very rewarding job. It can be challenging at times, but I enjoy every bit of it.
It's one of the things I get to work on semi-regularly, and the communications department, the development department work closely on the House of Charity, and it's rather joyous because we get the opportunity to, as we're putting together each year, it starts in midwinter every year in terms of when it kicks off and rolls out to the parishes, and we create all this content. And the ability to create the content means we get to go out and see all the great things that the House of Charity provides for around the diocese. And which is great because a lot of many things that it provides for through Catholic Charities, so we get to see a lot of the great work they do. But we also get to talk to vocations. And a lot of our ministries, Hispanic ministry, Black Catholic ministry. And it's nice to go out there and seeing, we have such great generous donors in our diocese who, because of their donations, we're able to do such great work. And through the House of Charity and the promotion of it, we're actually able to see it and promote. Here's how your money is turning into good opportunity. I have to imagine even Mary working for Catholic Charities like you do, that's something you guys see all the time.
I was just about to say it's, for people like me who they're in Catholic Charities every day, they see the clients who are coming in, they see the staff who are working closely with these clients. And, I see the hardships. I see why people come through our doors, and usually it's a time of crisis. They're facing eviction. They may have already lost their home. They're hungry. They don't have clothes. And some people, need counseling. They have mental health problems and problems with addiction. These are veterans. These are just the poorest of the poor in South Jersey. And so I see that every day. And I see, I see what this money does. And what it does is just create these stories, which it's my job to highlight. And it's just amazing to witness. I've said this before on the podcast, but just seeing the way people can really transform and go from like this state of crisis and hopelessness and just flourish through the help of our case managers and our programs. And like, that is the best part of my job. That's what gets me up in the morning and that is literally because of the House of Charity. It's because of House of Charity. That money is gold to us. I could go on forever.
And it's interesting just hearing you talk. It kind of dovetails into what this year's House of Charity theme is. Katie, what is the House of Charity theme this year?
Who is my neighbor?
Yeah.
And I love that.
Yes.
And it's one of the things we try to promote in the communications about the House of Charity, that the people we're taking care of these aren't people who are necessarily far away from you. They could very well be in the door next to you, in the house next to you, right, Katie?
Mm-hmm, absolutely. That was this is my first full House of Charity campaign to see from start to finish as the associate director. And I must say, with the Who is My Neighbor theme, I was just so excited and proud for that to be my first one, because, it really does make you think about who is my neighbor, especially now with all that, we're going through and all the challenges that people are overcoming. Now more than ever, we really need to support our neighbors in need. And we're going to continue to see that growing over the next, weeks, months, however long. So I think Who is My Neighbor is a good reminder.
Yeah. And that's Mary, you and I were talking about that yesterday in terms of just talking about the current, pandemic and the need that's there. You were telling me that the Catholic Charities offices are being hit every day, right? Particularly down in the Atlantic City area?
Oh, right. I mean, before this pandemic, like I said, in all 6 counties of South Jersey, we have offices, and every day before this pandemic, people would come in with needs. These are the poorest people, the most vulnerable. They're in these crises, and, we're there to help that. When you add a pandemic to this and all the things that come with a pandemic, people losing their jobs, people who don't have access to food, shelves are being completely cleared out. So imagine somebody who's working 2 jobs and then they try to go grocery shopping and there's nothing there for them. People are out of work. There's a whole new population of people that we're seeing who before this, they were making ends meet. They were living paycheck to paycheck. I think that's the case for the majority of Americans. But now people are out of work. Government agencies and that assistance only goes so far. So we are seeing a huge, massive influx of people who are, a lot of them have said, like, I can't believe it's almost a sense of shame, which is really sad. People who thought I would never, ever need help from a charity, even to me, it's hard to imagine, but it's understandable. People have mouths to feed, and the strain on parents who now have to take care of kids at home. And then the mental toll on top of that, like it's a lot. And the ripple effects of it it's been on one hand just so tragic to see, how much this has exacerbated poverty that's already existed in South Jersey. But on the other hand, I've been on calls every single day with staff at my colleagues at Catholic Charities, and just seeing how calm they have been and how proactive, and how in some ways this is nothing new to them. A pandemic, yes, that's new, but they're used to disaster response. Ever since 9/11, we have had a very, very active disaster response team where they've already put plans. They have plans in the event that something like this were to happen. If our offices were to ever close, what would we do? How would we still serve our clients? And just witnessing, they're calm, they're taking action, and they are still serving clients, even though our offices are closed. The services are still active, and just seeing all that like creative and positive energy that they've spilled into this, and the dedication that they keep on top of the stress that they themselves are feeling from this pandemic.
Yeah. You were telling me yesterday that some of the caseworkers said that it was worse than what they went through with Superstorm Sandy, right?
I've heard a number of people who have been at Catholic Charities for a while. Some have said that this reminds them of the aftermath of 9/11, which kind of startled me to hear that. You know, I was, I think, in third grade when 9/11 happened, so I can't really speak to the, the chaos following that. Sandy, though, I mean, Atlantic City especially has seen a number of crises. You know, there was Sandy, there was when all the casinos closed and thousands of people lost their jobs. And, you know, our team in Atlantic City, they were on top of that. You know, we came out with a new program specifically for the casino crisis, specifically for Hurricane Sandy and for Atlantic City employment. So, you know, that's all that we can do, is just react and keep pushing forward. And, but yes, in terms of the severity, people have said that it reminds them of Sandy, when, you know, people literally lost their homes and their jobs, and people kind of just line up outside the office and they are in need of help. And
yeah,
so it is very, very severe. And the worst part is, I think it's the tip of the iceberg.
Yeah, and that kind of takes us right back to Katie again. So here's some examples of, you know, real hardships that are going on, particularly in South Jersey, but all over the country. And when that happens, we need to rely on, financial contributions to help support us. So certainly the House of Charity, this year's theme wasn't created with the coronavirus in mind, but, you know, as we're thinking about what's going on right now, we can see a lot of examples out of what the House of Charity does do by providing services all around our diocese. So Katie, you speak with parishioners on a regular basis. How do you sort of broach it to them as their spiritual duty to, you know, support things like the House of Charity?
Oh, absolutely. So when speaking with them at this point, it's all about what they can do, you know, whether it's their time, their talent, their treasure. So when I speak with them, it's about what can we do to support, you know, our ministries? What can we do to support the House of Charity? And, you know, many times people, if they aren't able to contribute, they're willing to come into the parish and help in the volunteer aspect, which in my opinion is just as important as making a financial contribution. Yeah. I've spoken with a woman that stopped her cable to make a donation to the House of Charity.
Wow.
And
that's real commitment right there.
Situations like that, right? It honestly, it humbles you when you talk to somebody that has such a strong belief in what the House of Charity does and what we, who we support.
Yeah.
So I felt very proud at that moment, but honestly, it's whatever they can do, because we don't know anybody's situation. So the last thing we want to do is arm twist them into doing something that isn't comfortable, right? So It's all about allowing them to make their own educated decision on what they can do. Yeah. So, you know, we give them the tools to learn about what areas we support and what those ministries do in order to support, you know, those in need. And, you know, they're able to figure out what they can do. And a lot of them, they show up, you know, and it's important now more than ever that we stick together and we continue to support these ministries, because it's, as Mary had said, this is going to grow now. Like, more people are going to be in need of these services, and the House of Charity can't afford to slow down. You know, we're going to have more people to support.
Yeah. And, you know, we're not, but no entity like the Diocese or the House of Charity or Catholic Charities is unaware that we know our donors are being affected too. And,
absolutely.
And, you know, it's not, like you said before, it's not arm twisting necessarily that you must give, but maybe you can give a little bit, or maybe you can give a little bit later when things lighten up for you a little bit.
Right.
You know, it's there is a reality to what financial development and capital campaigns are like, and we're very aware of that. We know people are hurting, and if you can't give now, you know, we're hopeful that you can give later. But it's important to remember that one of the things that our Catholic faith is about is, you know, almsgiving and charity, and particularly during Lent. You know, it's no accident that that the House of Charity starts usually the weekend before, or a few weekends before Lent, depending on where Lent is during the calendar, because, you know, there is a Lenten sacrifice to things like the House of Charity. Now, we're talking about the Camden Diocese in specific here, but every diocese. So if you're in another part of the world, I don't know a single diocese that doesn't have something similar to this. Katie, you've worked all over the place. I'm going to say that our House of Charity is pretty typical for most dioceses, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
It is.
So it's the kind of thing that if you're listening elsewhere, you know, and you have never given to a campaign like this, you might want to really consider it. And what we tell people is that, you know, the House of Charity is a sacrificial donation. So we have our weekly donations that we give to our parish and the collection. In our case, the Diocesan House of Charity is a little something extra. You know, what would you say the average donation to the House of Charity is, Katie?
I would say the average is about $250.
Yeah, $250.
$250. Yeah.
Okay. Which
So,
over the course of a year I think that's a very reasonable amount, right?
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And we still, you know, we get those 5,000s, we get the 1,000s, but a lot of the gifts that we see come in are in that $250 range.
Yeah. Which is a perfectly reasonable amount, I would say.
Absolutely, yeah.
No, I think that's good. And you know, the development staff, you know, this is something that's very important to the diocese, and you can tell it's important because the development department has a hearty staff. It's no small thing to put together financial development for an entire diocese. It takes a lot of people to sort of fund that money through. What I often tell people is I use Cardinal Tobin's statement of a budget is a theological document. You know, our financials are something that we
Mike, that's written on the whiteboard in your office.
It is written on the whiteboard in my office, so I never forget. Every time I do my budget, I think about, well, what is it that I'm trying to accomplish? And certainly for us, that's the communications department, but the communications department, all we're trying to accomplish is spiritual things. So I make sure and I write that down all the time, and I'm very appreciative of Cardinal Tobin having said it. He said it during the Convocation of Catholic Leaders, the Joy of the Gospel and the Joy of the Gospel in the United States in July of 2017, which I attended. I happened to be there. It wasn't the focal point of his presentation. It was kind of a one-off in the middle of it, and it resonated so much because I'm like, you know, everything we think is important, we need to make sure we're budgeting for, and if we're not putting money behind it, then we're not really committed to it. So we have to think of our budgets as theological documents. So welcome to being a part of Scripture, Katie. Nice job.
And it takes a special kind of person to do what you do, Katie. I don't know how you can, because you're one of those people who are so just kind and genuine and nice to be around, but like I'd imagine you got to be tough for this type of job too, like, you know, and having that like savvy ability to be both. I mean, I could never do it.
And I'm
but
in the same
I know you've
boat.
had a lot of experience in this.
Yeah,
so,
Katie, what is it that makes a good financial development person? Like, particularly when it comes to the ask.
Yeah. Well, you have to believe in what you're sharing, right? And at the end of the day, you're inviting them into something that's bigger than all of us. And I'm just sharing, you know, what we do. I'm not forcing anybody into anything, as I had said before. So because I believe so much in it, it's easy for me to talk to somebody and let them know all the wonderful things that we do through the House of Charity and all the wonderful people that we support. And a lot of the times, you know, the people that I'm talking to believe in it too. And yes, it's hard sometimes in fundraising. You know, it's just another thing we're asking for money. But I have a tendency
I'm
getting
sorry,
somebody at the end of a conversation. So, or by the end of a conversation. So it ends up being difficult, but worth it. But you got to believe in it.
And I feel like, something you said just there was important, that, it's not a sales pitch per se. It's a conversation with a person and really helping them to understand where the need is and how we're able to help alleviate that need through our donation. And it took me a long time to understand that. Like I much like everyone else, well, not everyone else, unlike people like Katie, I have always had a very difficult time with whenever someone would ask me to fundraise for something. Matter of fact, to be truthful with you, I didn't really get comfortable with it at all until we started Catholic Strong in the Diocese of Camden 3-4 years ago, which is also where I first met Katie when she was working for Changing Our World. She was one of our first directors when she came and helped us with this capital campaign that's pledged over $40 million in the Diocese of Camden, which is I'm just stunned that we had such a great return on that. But prior to that, before I really got, and I had worked in development before in another job where communications and development were part of the same department. I did everything I could to get to not do the development stuff. And I had a good boss who trained me well, but I was never comfortable with it until we started doing Changing Our World. And, for years I would refuse when people would ask me to do, oh, Mike, can you do a pulpit announcement to talk about the need for things? And when I came to the realization of just how important it was for our Catholic Strong campaign, which was really dedicated to the parishes, 70% of, even though it was a diocesan-wide campaign, 70% of everything that was raised in the parishes was going to go back to the parish. 30% was going to be diocesan money, but it was going to be used specifically for new programs that had never existed before. So all that money was coming in and then going right back out again to help people. And, one of my old parishes came to me and says, hey, Mike, would you be willing to do the presentation? And I said, no, but I will, because I believe in this. And I did. And I was shocked. It actually had made a big difference. Like both the pastor and the people were very responsive to listening to this, mushmouth PR director talk about the importance of the campaign, because in my case that was my home parish, which I had moved to a different parish, but that was a parish I grew up in, and I was able to explain that from a very real perspective of someone who was a parishioner there, how the campaign was really going to positively impact the parish, and it was meaningful.
And that touches on something that Katie said about you have to believe what you're selling. I think that's what you said. And that's so true. I mean, how much can you really be dedicated to this and have your level of energy and dedication and perseverance if, you don't see all the time the good that it does. So I know that's important. I remember being in college, and when I was in marketing, and this is before I changed my major to journalism, but in marketing, I was sitting through classes of how to sell things. And it kept going back to, I'm sorry, St. Joe's, I love you, but it always came back to food marketing. And for some reason, every project I was assigned, it was always a semester-long project of how to sell potato chips or something like that. And God bless the people in those fields. That's great. But I was just thinking God, I need something that I can really put my energy behind and really believe in. And that's why, I found myself drawn to service. You're selling a service that you believe in. I think for a lot of people, you really need to really know that what you're selling, it's good stuff.
Yeah.
So that's a good question, Katie. How did you get drawn into Catholic fundraising?
It's actually funny. I was going to piggyback off of what Mary said. My entire career has been based off of fundraising. And once my first campaign with parishes was in St. Louis. And initially, it was tough because not everybody is comfortable with raising money, especially within the parishes. So, once you kind of give them those tools and show them that they can do it, teach them, coach them, and you see that end result, it's just such a rewarding experience. And just knowing what the appeal does, though, with Changing Our World, it was more of a broad aspect. I helped the pastors, run their campaigns, and being an associate director of House of Charity, it takes on a whole new level of responsibility and just pure passion for me. I've never, and I always loved the jobs that I have done in the past, but this is definitely the most passionate I felt about something, and the responsibility I feel to be successful for the parishes, for the ministries, for the development, for the diocese as a whole. It's just, it's overwhelming at times in a good way.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
Oh, it's okay. But knowing that the money we raise goes to the ministries within the diocese, it's just, it's a wonderful feeling for me. And I truly enjoy what I do. That's what gets me to get through fundraising,
in addition to selling what you believe in and fundraising for it, do you have development tips that, parishes and other dioceses could use in terms of, what they should be doing, how they should be broaching, if they're doing campaigns similar to this? Yeah.
So one of the things that I always push with parishes, and a lot of them have taken my my suggestions this year, which was really exciting, is getting somebody to speak to what the House of Charity does, how they're supporting people. So I know Catholic Charities has been so great at sending people at Mass to speak about how it's personally impacted them, Vitality, vocations, all the different areas, hearing from somebody to get that personal story. I feel like it shows the parishioners that their donation matters, that what they're giving to the campaign, whether it be House Charity or something else, it makes a true difference. And a lot of people respond to that, having the opportunity to hear from someone that isn't Katie Comerford, somebody that is in the trenches receiving those funds. Another thing that I would say is communicate. Especially with Catholic Strong, I think it's important for parishioners to see where that money is going, how the parish, because 70% of the funds raised goes back to them. How are they utilizing it? What are they seeing within the parish? Seeing their dollars at work, I think, makes a huge difference. So just continuing to share and keeping the parishioners updated on what's going on. Sometimes I feel they can get disconnected if they're, donating and then they don't hear anything about, what's happening. Yeah. So in my opinion, that's a big one. And making your request as personal as possible. So mailings are a great way to get in touch with a lot of people at once, but taking that time to sit down with somebody, telling them what's going on at the parish, how their donation will make a true difference, and how appreciated they are as a donor, as a parishioner, as a member of the community. That makes a difference. The percentage of giving after a one-on-one visit is so much higher than sending a mailing. So I always suggest doing that, and receptions, getting a small group of people together. Obviously right now that's not something that can happen, but I find that those, are successful tips, making it personal, sharing stories, and communicating.
Yeah, there really is nothing that'll ever be more useful than person-to-person contact. And you're right, certainly in the era of the coronavirus, that's going to be difficult. Though who knows, maybe Zoom will work just as well. But it is true. You can't it's so much simpler to send a mailing, but if you really want to be successful, people need to see you. They need to look in your eyes. They need to trust you. They need and this isn't, hucksterism. This is, really imparting to a person in their space and saying, thank you for even being interested. And here's how you can help. Mary, you want to say something?
Yeah. Katie, I know you had sent Kevin Hickey, Catholic Charities Executive Director, an email, asking, is there any staff who are willing to speak at parishes and kind of have that personal testimony and share that? And I have to tell you that when Kevin forwarded that email to Catholic Charities staff, most of whom are case managers and caseworkers, most of them are terrified of public speaking. That is just not their thing at all. They are used to the one-on-one personal encounters with clients. But the language that Kevin used talking about how important this appeal is, I was blown away. He said, anybody who can and is willing to speak, please reply to this email. And so I'm hearing the chatter go around the office like, oh, I'm so scared. Like, I don't like public speaking. But so many people ended up saying, you know what, add me to the list. If this is my chance to thank people, if this is my chance to share like the good work that's being done, then sign me up. And public speaking is a very, very real fear for a lot of people. It was for me for a long time, so I can relate. But
wait, you're not scared of it anymore? Because
I'm still terrified.
Okay,
when I say like scared before, I mean like I wouldn't be able to eat, I wouldn't be able to sleep if I knew I had to speak to an audience greater than like 5 people. It was really, really bad.
Come to think of it, Mary, I think you should be our Justice for All MC next year, our gala dinner.
My blood pressure, just like I feel my heart racing.
Fun fact, I'm actually terrified of public speaking.
Really?
No. You're one of those people where I hear you talk and I'm like, God, I wish I sounded like her. I wish I could be as eloquent and clear. And
well, if you think about it, all 3 of us are introverted. I mean, I have terrible introversion. I've only been able to succumb to, to get above it simply by sheer will. It's like, but it's like every time we go to do something, I've talked about this on the podcast before, but every time I go to do something, like I'll say, like it'll be 2 months away and I'll say, oh, sure. I'll do that. No problem. And then the day comes, I'm like, what was I thinking? Please let this event be canceled. I don't want to go do this. Like I've had to travel for it. And I'm like, please let my flight be canceled. Please let the, hotel burn down. I don't want anyone to get hurt, but anything that will keep me from doing what I have to do. Cause I have such terror, but then you get there and you get through it and you realize, oh, that wasn't half bad. That was okay. Right, Katie?
Exactly.
It's never that awful, is it?
It isn't. And honestly, it's the minutes leading up to it. And then, I'll tell you a quick fun story. So we have our volunteer acknowledgement dinner at Tomasello Winery each year. So we had it in June. And I had, obviously, because I'm the Associate Director of Development, I had to do a lot of speaking that night at the podium. And I was sweating. I was so nervous. And I was like, all right, anything that I can do to not speak the whole time. Can somebody do the 50-50 raffle? So I'll speak and then you do the raffle. I got up, then called Robin to come do the 50-50. I got so comfortable up there. By the end of it, I was doing the 50-50. I was walking around. So, once you get up there and you get started, you're fine.
Yep. It's
just the anticipation of
exactly.
Yep.
Exactly.
I used to have to write. I remember for presentations in college and even after that, I used to actually had to write in like my script or notes, breathe. I had to like remind, because I realized that was my problem. I wouldn't actually like breathe, and then my heart would start racing. But yeah, once you get past those first few minutes, I think it does become a lot easier.
And
I would have never guessed that about you, though, Katie.
Well, that's good. That makes me feel good.
And to be completely transparent, Mary is terrified every time we're about to start a podcast. She's constantly trying to get out of it and never volunteers for it. I always have to make her do it. And then she comes on and she's great. If anything, she's even chattier than she would expect.
I listened to it after and I'm like, oh my gosh, what was I...
Actually, though, if that's a good tip for people, though. If you do these things like have to do any public speaking and you're not comfortable with it, I always give 2 pieces of advice. Look to see if there's a Toastmasters club in your area.
Toastmasters, yes.
They're great with teaching you all the ins and outs of public speaking, and there's an entire philosophy to it and how you organize your thoughts and things like that. And it's a very useful thing to do. I give that all the time. But the other thing that you really need to do is, if you have the opportunity to hear yourself, record it yourself, or someone records it for you, go back and watch it so you can, number one, see that you weren't as terrible as you thought you were.
That's traumatizing for some people. No, people don't like the sound of their own voices.
Well, that's true, but that's one of the things you have to get past. Like for me, if I have had any success on the podcast at all, it has to do with the fact that I actually go back and listen to them again and try to figure out where all of my tics are. For one thing, I'm still fighting against the ums. I use them all the time, and I try to stop, but sometimes they creep in. And the worst part is, if you can force yourself to stop using an in the middle of your sentence and just instead pause. So, because that's all. That's all an does. It's just a pause to get your brain. The thing is, if you drop the and just pause, it actually makes you sound smarter because it seems like you're reflecting.
But it makes us so uncomfortable. Like we're so not okay with pausing.
Yeah, it's true. But if you read the eyes of the audience, it certainly doesn't work on a podcast like this, but if you read the eyes of an audience when you pause, so long as it's not like a crazy pause, so long as it's just, less than a second or maybe a second or two, people will be hanging on your next words, waiting to hear what comes at the end of that pause. And it may be nothing, maybe superfluous, who knows, might be the most powerful thing you say. But see, there I did it again. Figuring out how to drop the ums and using pauses instead, it actually improves.
And the likes.
Yeah, and the likes, right, stuff like that. It actually improves your speaking style. What about you, Katie? Any suggestions for improving, aside from getting up there and doing the raffle or drinking?
Yeah. So one of the things that I always, I need to make sure that I'm comfortable with the material. So when I'm not 100%, familiar with it, that's when, it becomes difficult up there, So
that is very true.
And I just have to practice, make sure that I know what I'm saying. Don't need to always, I have bullets, but I don't like to have an entire script in front of me because that'll throw me off if I miss a word. But see, I said But if I'm familiar enough with the material and I know that I've done my due diligence to make sure that I know all the points I need to hit, for me, that's enough to get up there. And, I think that for a lot of people, it would be helpful not to go up there and wing it.
Yeah. The only time
there's certain people who have that ability to wing it, and I am so jealous of those.
I know.
Your boss is one of them, Mary.
Yeah, there are a number of. Kevin Hickey is one of them where it's like he knows. Like I spend hours, preparing and reading and practicing, and I still don't sound half as good as people who have that ability to. Oh, yeah, I'll be fine. They get up there and just nail it. And I'm so envious of those people.
Yeah, Kevin is great with that, isn't he?
He is. He really is.
He's so good at it, I make fun of him on a regular basis about it. He'll come to, we'll be in these directors meetings and everyone else around the table will have these notes and he's got nothing in front of him and he just wings it. And I finally called him out in front of a meeting. I was like, I just want to point out, Kevin is coming unprepared. He just makes all this stuff up as he's sitting there.
Oh, as if you don't, Mike.
No, that's just it. I'm a note taker. The only time I come in completely unprepared is for the podcast. Not quite completely unprepared, but I'll do a little bit of.
Leave it to me, and then right. You wonder why I get nervous for these things.
That does help. No, I don't have anything written down. I'll do a little bit of preparation just to make sure I have everybody's name right and title right and things of that nature. Maybe a little bit of background if I don't know a lot about them. But as a general rule, I don't, because I always consider this the part of the interview process. So I want to hear what you have to say, and I want to respond to it, and then bring my perspective to it, and we go back and forth. But for a presentation, yeah, it'd be far more wise to have a few notes in front of you. But I'm the same way as you are, Katie. If I write everything down in front of me, like if I do it as a script form, unless I actually keep to that script, and I don't plan on going off the script at all, if I use the script, then it'll screw me up. I have to use the notes, and then I'll kick myself later because I'll forget something. Come to think of it, going back to when I had to do the Catholic Strong presentation, I had my notes so I did 3, a 4:30, an 8:30, and a 10:30. So the 4:30 on Saturday, I had written this entire script out and was planning to just read off the script. And then the pastor, God love him, did a little preview of what I was going to come up and talk about from the pulpit after Mass had completed. And he used all of my stuff. Everything I was going to say to the letter he used.
Oh, no.
And I had to completely redo my speech as I was walking up to the thing. And so fortunately, because it was my home parish and I knew some of the stuff that had gone on since I left, I just spoke off the top of my head, and it was unbelievable. It was great. It was wonderful.
So I thought you were about to say, and it was horrible.
No.
But wow, okay, that took a positive turn.
But wait for it.
Yeah.
So the next day, this was part of a merged parish. So that was one church the night before. And then the next morning at the 8:30, I was like, I got this covered. I'll do the exact same thing again. I know what he's going to say, so now I know what I'm going to say. It was a train wreck. So I couldn't tell if it was because it was a completely different audience. I couldn't tell if it was because it was 8:30 in the morning. That's probably what it was.
That could be it.
Yeah, but the shtick that I did at 4:30 did not work at 8:30 in the morning. And nothing. And I had there was no back and forth with the audience or the congregation. There was nothing. It was just dead. And I felt terrible afterwards. And then when I did the 10:30 ended up being about someplace in the middle, proving once again that I should not be around other human beings in the morning. I am definitely later in the day kind of guy. As we're sitting here recording, we started recording this at 11:30 a.m. This will mean it'll be a middling podcast for everyone who's listening.
Yes.
So, Katie, now that you've been a part of the diocese for the last year and a half officially, how have you been enjoying it? We had you on the podcast once before when you'd only for a few months, I think. So how's it now been? Now you got a full year and plus under your belt.
I love it. It's been such a wonderful experience, and the people that you get to work with is just it's so much fun. And getting to know the pastors at a better level, the volunteers, going around to all the different parishes, and just getting to know the diocesan staff too. It's been wonderful, and I truly do enjoy it. And I feel like every day, I get better and better. So. There's always a lot to learn, and I'm still learning.
Yeah. But
it's definitely been a great experience and a place that I truly enjoy working for.
Yeah,
Katie, I don't know if... Oh, sorry, Mike.
No, go ahead.
Both keep starting to talk at the same time.
That's because we're chatterbox. For being me being an introvert and you being scared of public speaking, we both like to talk an awful lot. What were you going to say, Mary?
Katie, I don't even know if this is something that you can share, but I remember the first time I met you, Kevin Hickey introduced us, and you told me one of the funniest things I've ever heard from one of your previous roles, and you don't have to say any names, but it involved a conversation where you actually saw somebody leave and drive away. Is that something you're allowed to share or no?
I mean, it's not this diocese, so it doesn't matter, right?
Yeah.
So
speaking of like horror stories and public speaking and things that can go wrong, this one had me almost just cracking up.
Oh gosh. So I was in the middle of a meeting, and the pastor said he'd be right back. And his office faces the parking lot. So, and there's a big window behind his desk. So I'm sitting there waiting, and then all of a sudden I see the pastor through the window get in his car and drive away. And I went out to the parish secretary, and she was like, "I am so sorry."
Oh, no.
I said, it's okay, but just let them know we got to finish this meeting at some point, So I'll be back tomorrow.
See,
No
that's
problem
like
for me.
stuff where like I wouldn't be able to move on after that. But the fact that you stick with it and
I have to remember to do that next time Mary's in my office. Just to walk off and drive away. That's great.
just be right back and then ghost somebody.
That's right. That's hysterical. Perhaps a little bit more important, Katie. How have you been keeping up with your Marveldom? I know your husband is a huge Marvel fan, much like myself. Are you, as I am, quite worried with the coronavirus that we may not be getting our Black Widow and the Eternals movies soon enough?
It is that is something that my husband's a little bit more worried about than I am. But in my opinion, are they still taping or filming Black Widow, or is that all finished?
Well, that's in the can. That's supposed to come out May 1st, I think. So that one's good. But the Eternals is still, I think, being put together.
Yeah, because I keep thinking there's a lot of movies that were just sent directly to on demand, which obviously is awful for the theaters. Right. But what if they just put Black Widow on there? I mean, some of these, they're selling them for like $20 to rent on demand. And, when you're locked in your house, you might actually spend that $20. Yeah. I know I did. I feel a little embarrassed to admit it.
What did you watch?
So we watched The Hunted.
Oh, the new one with the woman from the actress from Glow. Betty Gilpin. I
don't know if the blonde.
Yes, yeah, that's her. Okay, I've been wanting to see it. That was the one that was held up for a year because of some of his content, right? That was
really
that was supposed to come out in August, and it was held up till the end of the year. And I heard it was supposed to be a very I heard it was supposed to be a very good movie, like a good summer popcorn movie, and then it got held. And I was looking forward to seeing it, and I was disappointed. But then I saw that, a lot of the, we're all kind of figuring out how to handle the coronavirus, and Catholic parishes have been live streaming their masses now for the better part of a week, I guess now. And it actually kind of made a lot of sense that, these big budget movies are going to have to find a new place to live because you still want them to come out. And because of the uncertainty, when we don't know when we're going to come back into movie theaters again and being in groups again, when I saw that a lot of them, I think the first to do it was Disney Plus by releasing Frozen 2 like 3 months early. I was like, you know what? That's a kind thing to do. Now, they're going to make money on it, and that's great, too. And I certainly don't begrudge that. But the fact that they're coming out early when there's new stuff we're going to need to do. For me, it was the biggest concern, going back to the Marvel stuff, was Disney Plus is also supposed to have all these Marvel TV shows. And they are held up in production. And that does make me sad because Falcon and the Winter Soldier was supposed to come out, I think, in August or September. I think that might get delayed. And worse yet, we might get The Mandalorian delayed, which means no more Baby Yoda for a little while longer, which would upset me because who doesn't love
Baby Yoda? But I think we can use a break from that.
No, you're wrong.
That was all over the place for too
Baby
long.
Yoda? Or Star Wars?
Baby Yoda. The memes I'm talking about.
Okay.
Oh, yeah.
Wait,
those memes were everywhere.
It was a little much.
Did you
You know what? I kind of miss them now that everything I see is,
coronavirus related?
Coronavirus, but that's where we are.
Did you actually watch The Mandalorian, Mary?
I haven't.
You should. It's outstanding.
I haven't.
Katie, did you watch it?
Told me to watch that. And what's the other one? The other series related to Star Wars? Not
Clone Wars?
Clone Wars?
Yep.
Yeah.
And I haven't gotten there yet either. And I don't know why. I had disappointments about the most recent movies that have come out, and it's just made me think just the original trilogy, forget the prequels and, the newer ones. I I liked, but I had issues with, and I just want to remember Star Wars as I did before all of this.
Well, here's the thing. That's why you need to watch The Mandalorian, because
that's what people keep telling me.
It is just like the original Star Wars. It's really if you think of the original Star Wars as sort of a spaghetti western / Japanese samurai movie, The Mandalorian is absolutely a science fiction or fantasy western. It's outstanding.
Maybe I will check it out then.
Katie,
when you said, there's something much more important, I thought we were going to talk about, the virus or some important diocesan announcement. But no, I hear Marvel. I'm like, is that really what he just said?
Well, the last time Katie was on,
Katie's on board with it. I'm like, that's my time to shut up.
Well, the last time Katie was on, we were talking about that a little bit. So I just wanted to, as we're wrapping up in the last 20 seconds, I just wanted to hit back at it one more time. But Katie, thank you very much for joining us. It was really a pleasure speaking to you, even if we had to do it remotely. But I promise we'll have everybody back in the vault soon. Mary, thank you very much.
No, not the vault.
Oh, the vault.
Do it this way.
All right. Well, thank you both for hanging on the Zoom call with us today, and thank everybody for checking us out and listening. And we will be back next week. See you, everybody.